Hey everybody. Hello, it is Catherine Massell here, Ascending Earth Creatrix and a Master Intuitive Energy Healer. Hello, happy Friday. I'm having lots of trouble uploading videos today, so let's just hope that this one goes through. I have something I want to share with you today, talking about one of the things that's on a lot of our minds right now, because we are closing out 2018 and we are reconciling ourselves with a lot of the cleansing and the clearing and the purging that we have done in 2018, because it's been a lot. We've peeled away a lot of layers of resistance. We've really excavated a lot of the old self. And it's really important for us now to look ahead. Now that we've created this energetic void, we've cleared out so much space, that brings in a lot of free energy for us to create a more idealized version of self. Say hello if you're joining me here. I'm going to share this. Let's hope that I can keep this live feed going. We'll see. Now that Mercury has gone direct, we'll see if I'm having better levels of communication here today. Maybe there's some lingering energy there. So, how do you become aware of the unconscious self? How do you begin to clear your connection to the old self and create a whole new reality? Hi, Becky. Welcome and thanks for joining. How do you let go of the unconscious self and become the idealized version of you? What are the steps? So I'm going to walk you through 3 different steps. And if this really resonates with you, you are definitely going to want to look at the Evolve and Expand program. And there is $300 off the full price of that if you join before Sunday, the 9th of December. So I'm going to put that info up in the comments. But what I'm sharing with you here is just a glimpse, a small taste of what we're doing in Evolve and Expand, and it starts on January 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time for 8 weeks. Hey Stephanie, how do you let go of the unconscious self and become the idealized version of you? Okay. This really involves you unmemorizing the old you. You have to unmemorize your current reality. That means your thoughts, which are hardwired in the brain. Connections in the brain are hardwired because of the thoughts that you think every single day. Mostly the thoughts that we have are on an unconscious level, and it's thoughts that we have that are connections with our outer reality. Meaning we have such a strong egoic connection with what happens, what we see laid out for us in our external reality, that we just become addicted to this way of being, because we think, in egoic consciousness anyway, that our external environment shows us who we are. And in fact, over time of thinking the same thoughts about our external environment, our outer reality over time, over and over and over again, sometimes for decades, we create from that a personal reality. We create our identity. We literally define ourselves by what it is that we are getting on a constant feedback loop, sensory feedback loop from our external environment. It allows us to believe who we are. This is a false ego projection. It's not really who we are. It's not a true and authentic version of who we are, but it's who we put out there to the world, okay? So we have these hardwired connections in the brain, mostly validating and recreating the conditions in your external reality. Hey, Patrice. Unmemorizing the old you means getting rid of and unlearning your unconscious chemical response that you have from these thoughts, okay? So anytime you have a thought, and this is happening on an unconscious level or a conscious level, but for most of us, we are running an automatic program or way of being, and we are not consciously checked into the thoughts that we have ongoing throughout the day, and then the chemical responses, meaning literally the emotions that occur from these thoughts. We're not largely checked into that. Many of us are not. So these conditioned emotional responses triggered by the thoughts that we have, they are these same emotions then that we have day in and day out. Because if you're thinking the same thoughts about your reality day in and day out, you're going to have the same emotional responses because your thoughts and the feelings are linked. Biochemically, physiologically, your thoughts and your feelings are linked to fire and wire together. Okay? That is why it's so difficult that if you are trying to create change in your life and you have a thought about, well, wouldn't it be nice to have this way of being? Wouldn't it be nice to be this person? Wouldn't it be nice to have this thing, to be able to do this thing, have this thing in my life? But then the same old feelings overtake us all the time of desperation, of lack, of sense of urgency, of wanting to change things, but feeling like hollow inside, or feeling like we're never supported. We can never do the same things or have the same things that other people can. We have tried to do this before and it never worked out. That creates a feeling space within you that is not congruent with this thought of, wouldn't it be nice to live this way? You're firing and wiring in two different ways. Until those sync up and are congruent, your thoughts and your feelings, you will be in this constant mode of living across purpose or living in a counter-intention, which means you're thinking one thing, but you're feeling something entirely opposite. So your thoughts and your feelings, they wire, they fire together, okay? And when they do, this creates a congruent, cohesive external reality, meaning this sets up a manifestation in the physical that is only and ever in alignment with the thoughts and your feelings that you're thinking that are in alignment with each other. So unmemorizing the old you means you have to quit thinking the same things over and over again every single day, and you have to stop feeling the same feelings that you are basically emotionally addicted to at this point, because when the same chemical responses happen in the body, meaning you keep feeling the same emotions every single day, this creates something that the body gets addicted to. So because the body is addicted to these emotions every single day, what it will help you do is think more of the same thoughts to keep those feelings flowing, to keep those emotions flowing, to keep those chemical responses happening in the body over and over and over again. This has to be a conscious redirection of energies. Otherwise, this same cascade effect of responses happens over and over and over again. These two things together, your thoughts and your feelings, have allowed you to run automatic programs, okay? And this has caused your brain to fire the exact same way, the same sequences, the same patterns, the same combinations of thoughts, feelings, thoughts, feelings, thoughts, feelings, over and over again, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, okay? What we are up against and why the struggle is so real for us to change is because a way of being, literally our identity, our personal reality, is such an ingrained, deeply ingrained, entrenched way of being that if you try to make even a subtle change sometimes, not only are you going to smack against the borders of the ego every single time, because the ego doesn't like change. And the ego always knows what you're up to. When you try to change something and you try to shift something in your life, even if it's a more self-affirming way of being, the ego doesn't care. The ego takes no notice of that, whether it's good for you or bad for you. The ego doesn't make those discernments. All it knows is you are breaking from your familiar past, which is such an ingrained and entrenched way of being in terms of neurological connections in the body, neurotransmitters, chemical responses being fired in terms of the same emotions day in, day out. All it knows is that you are trying to break from your familiar past. The ego does not like that. So you're always going to bump up against yourself, which is the ego self, and it's a projection of a way of being. So if you don't understand that when you try to create a change, you try to create a shift, or even more than that, try to totally blow up or transform your life, unless you understand that changing your thoughts and your feelings together must be something that you do and you tackle right away, you will smack up against the same old resistance, the same old struggle, the same old suffering every single time. You have to change your thoughts and your feelings. And I see this happen with a lot of people who are really struggling with living out a past trauma, a past event, or a past experience that has allowed them to create the personality that they have today. It could have been some trigger, some emotional experience, some trauma, some shock that happened 20, 30 years ago. But they're still living in reference to that same trauma or shock, meaning they have developed thoughts around their identity based on this event experience. They have developed feelings about who they are, about their whole personal reality and their whole worldview based on this past event or experience. And so basically, many of us are just bringing the familiar past into the present over and over and over again, because we are still thinking thoughts and feeling feelings that validate, corroborate that way of being from this past trauma, event, or experience that might have happened 2-3 decades ago. Unless we consciously shift and make that change, we are creating a predictable destiny of bringing our familiar past into our current reality, validating it over and over with the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same behaviors, and wondering why. God, I want to change. Why? I'm scratching my head here wanting to know why I can't change. It's because you are not looking at and you are not paying attention to or having mindful awareness of the thoughts that you think every day and the feelings that you feel every day. Until you change these things, both of them in tandem, because you can't change a thought and then still keep firing the same feelings or having that same sense of conditioned responses in the body. The thoughts and the feelings have to be in congruence with each other in order to create any significant change or long-term transformation for you. You have to become, then, the objective observer of your reality, your day in, day out experience. That means you have to monitor your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors that are in an unconscious automatic program. Hi Dina, hi Chad, thanks for joining. You have to get out of this survival mode frequency where you're only producing the same level of being that is equal to your environment, which is your outer reality. This identity that we've created, which is basically an ego projection, it is a sheath. It's not the real us. It's not the real you. It's not the real me. It is a projection of who we think we are based on the sensory stimuli of our outer environment. So what we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell every single day allows us to believe we are this person, whoever that is. Me, Catherine, Patrice, Chad, Dina, Becky. It's not the real you. In fact, the real you is buried under layers of this ego projection of self based on a series of past events, past experiences, traumas, shocks, anything that happened to you in your past that allowed you to think a certain thought about who you are or have a certain feeling about who you are. You are buried, the real you is buried under layers and layers and layers and layers of these different events and experiences and the thoughts and the feelings that you have about those events and experiences. So think about how deep that goes. When you think about it in that way, and especially for those of us who've been on this earth for 4 decades like I have, that's a lot. There's a lot to sift through there. This is not an insurmountable task. This is not an impossible task, by the way, because those of you who are watching who are in the Money Lab with me, you know this. This is already well ingrained because this is the work that we do in that course. So you have to stop thinking then. You have to break free from and move beyond the sensory stimuli that comes from your external environment that allows you to believe who you are. You need to be able to move beyond that to such a degree that you start creating a different internal state that is independent of anything you see, feel, taste, touch, and hear in your external environment. I know this sounds big, but this is how you create significant change. This is how you transform. This is how you move beyond the old self and create a new one and reinvent a new self. There is no other way. Anyone who tells you that there is another way, they are blowing smoke. I'm sorry. This is the only way to do it. You must dismantle, deconstruct the old self, and free up that energy in order to reinvent a new one. You need to change your internal state so that you can elevate the mind beyond the ego self. This is how you access creator mode. This is how you move beyond survival mode. Your everyday interaction, meaning that sensory feedback loop that you are getting constantly from your external environment that allows you to believe who you are, that is survival mode. Because you are just reacting. You're not responding necessarily. You are reacting over and over again with the same thoughts, the same feelings, to an external reality that is basically an illusion. And it feels like this constant state of struggle. It feels like this constant level of suffering. We are constantly being shown all the illusion that goes along with ego consciousness that aligns with lack, that aligns with this complete illusion of the absence of whatever it is that we want. There is no absence. I'm going to say this again. There is no absence of what we want. Because everything that we want, if we can think it, if we can imagine it, it already exists in the ethereal fabric, the quantum fabric of the universe. If we can imagine it, it can be. And in fact, in the ethereal, if we imagine it, it already is. It's already there. It's already imprinted energetically. But when we are focused completely on our external environment and that which has been made manifest in the physical, we are focused on such a microcosmic portion of reality that we are veiled literally in our perception or our ability to perceive anything that is a potential outcome that we would most desire, that we'd most align with in terms of, when I think of the ideal version of myself, everything that I want to create is not in my personal reality that's already been made manifest. Some of it is now. But most of it, 99.99999% of it, in fact, exists as potential in the quantum field, the universal field of potential, if you want to call it that. But we are so good at being fixed on our external environment that literally puts us in survival mode. And when we are in survival mode day in and day out, meaning we think about all the things that are absent in our life, which is totally fiction, totally an illusion, by the way, totally a construct of ego consciousness. This is a human construct. In the universe and in the multiverses, there is no such thing as lack. That is a completely human construct. Everything that we need is available in abundance, and I mean everything. Limitless potential. And until we understand this and start to live in tandem with this, we are not accessing ascended consciousness. So in this survival mode, that negates everything that we need to be in creator mode. When we are in survival mode, everything that we can possibly be, every potential available to us is veiled to us because our perception, our attention, and our focus is so fixed on our physical state of our external environment that you literally can't see what else is available for you. Until we learn how to close this gap, we will not access ascended consciousness. Until we stop believing and buying into the lie that there is such a thing as lack or absence of something, we will never be able to access ascended consciousness. Until we start to live and create in a way that is aligned with an abundant way of being, where we can create anything that we desire by the force of sheer will and our dedication, our commitment, and our focus and attention on that, we will not access ascended consciousness. We can start doing this now. That is available to us. This is how we evolve the mind, and this is how we begin to expand into ascended consciousness right now. You can start doing it today. Step 1. The first step is that you must become really present. You must develop a level of mindfulness, literally your metacognitive ability to monitor your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors every single day. You have to choose to be more metacognitive. Now, you can choose one day to do this. Why not choose tomorrow? Choose one day, just one day, to be more present and mindful, meaning every single moment you're aware of. Largely, we are involved in a series of automatic programs throughout our day where we are not mentally checked into what we're doing. How many times is someone talking to you throughout your day where you're only half listening, you're tuned out? Where are you? You're not present. You're not being mindful. You're not in the now. And I always like to say the now moment is the most largely unused piece of real estate, piece of energetic real estate. The now moment is largely unoccupied by us. And this is a crime, because until we learn how to live in the now moment, we will also not be able to access ascended consciousness. This is the key to being in creator mode. You can't be in creator mode and not be in the now, because there is no creation outside of now. There is no creation in the past. There is no creation in the future. Creation of any event, any experience, any feeling, any thought, only and ever creates in the now. It is only and ever generated in the now. And so until we learn to occupy this space all the time, every day, all day, we are not fully in creator mode. So being present is step one. Choose one day to be more metacognitive. Monitor your thoughts. Monitor your feelings. For one day, notice how events and experiences throughout your day, triggers throughout your day. There's a person at work you don't like. What are they saying that makes you feel a certain way? What are they saying that makes you think a certain way, better said, think a certain way and then feel a certain way? And then how do you act? Notice how an unconscious stream of energy from an event, meaning someone saying something to you, driving in traffic, someone cutting in front of you in line at the bank or the grocery store. Notice how, when you are more present, this is the only way you can notice this, because when you're present, you're in creator mode, and the only way you can notice your behaviors, your thoughts, and your feelings is if you're in creator mode. Notice how largely before that event would have transcended any kind of conscious level of interaction. You would just automatically behave, think, feel in a certain way. And you will only pick this up if you are more present and aware and actively involved in each now moment that goes throughout your day. Notice how any event, experience, trigger in your external environment throughout your day allows you to think and feel. Then how do you act? And when you're in this moment, you'll say, okay, well, I've done that about 20 times probably in the last month. How does that affect your overall feeling? How does that affect your overall worldview? Like, you're not supported, someone's out to get you, maybe you have a martyr syndrome, maybe you have a victim program running. Only when you are present in the now are you allowed to pull back on your lens of perception and see the greater story or the greater lesson being laid out for you. There's no other way. There's no other way to do this. You can't do this from an ego frame of mind. Because when you're in an ego frame of mind, you are too busy in the task of being you, meaning you're too busy being in survival mode. You're too busy scrimping and scraping by and validating your reason to struggle over and over again. Does this start to make sense? Give me a heart if this is making sense for you guys, or if I'm even still live. By being more metacognitive, you're already changing your internal state. Now think about that. By occupying this place of being present, being more mindful of your thoughts, your feelings, and then how you act, how you behave, being more metacognitive already begins to change your internal state. By noticing and having conscious awareness of what normally would have been just conditioned responses to your outer world. Does that make sense? So then how do you change that? You have to lose the old self. You have to lose your mind, essentially. You have to break the habit of being you. You have to unmemorize your emotional addiction to your environment, because largely it is an addiction. Because remember what I said, the body doesn't like it if we start firing different chemical responses because it's so used to, it's so conditioned to that stream of familiar responses, those chemical responses in the body that allow you to feel a certain emotion. And that certain emotion, unfortunately, that most of us are conditioned to, that we're addicted to, is aligned with survival mode. Let's just say you're looking at your life right now and you're seeing a pile of bills. You're seeing a bunch of financial obligations that you can't meet right now. You're going to think the same thoughts about that over and over again. You're going to have the same conditioned chemical responses in the body. In other words, the same feelings firing over and over again. And when you fire those same feelings over and over again, you are going into fight or flight mode because you are aligning with lack. And whenever you align with lack, you are aligning with survivor mode, thinking, feeling, and conditioned responses in the body that put you into high stress level hormones that are being fired, and you're in survival mode. And think about the damaging effect to the body over time. If you are in survival mode every single day, let's just say, if you are aligning with lack, literally the absence of all the things that you want or desire in your life, you're aligning with that feeling every single day. That means you are aligning with survival mode every single day. And you are telling the body, through this conditioned set of responses of thoughts, feelings, and behavior, to fire these same toxic chemicals in the body, these hormones that are trying to get waste out of the body, but instead they're just moving around and creating an overstimulated internal environment that is putting the organs in stress. All the muscles and tissues in the body are going into stress. And that hardwires your brain to be in survival mode all the time. This creates a cascade effect in the body of progressive deterioration. This is not good. This is really bad. And until we learn how to move out of those sets of conditioned responses, those automatic programs that keep us in survival mode, we're basically wearing the body down, we're wearing the mind down, we're wearing the body down. And when we don't have any relief from this, meaning we're aligning with lack every single day, there's no break from this survival mode. There's no break from this physical effect that it has on the body that is progressively deteriorating us from the inside out. Think how toxic that is. It's incredibly toxic. And most people on the planet are living this way. This is not aligned with 5D awareness. This is not aligned with 5D consciousness, because you can't take this feeling, this state of being with you, into ascended consciousness. Vibrationally, this way of being is not supporting that at all. We have to move beyond, then, our addiction to our external environment. Unmemorize the emotional addiction you have to your environment and create new behaviors. This can only be done from an elevated state of consciousness. You can't be in survival mode and create a new way of being. You can't literally reinvent the self with the same frame of mind that created the old self. It is never going to work. Those are two diametrically opposed energies. And vibrationally, ego mind survival mode does not support anything that you would create in terms of reinventing the self. You have to be in creator mode to do that. You can't be in survival mode. You can't be in the same frame of mind that created this old you or this current reality and create a new self from that. It cannot be done. And this is why so many of us are like hitting our heads against the wall, because we're trying to create this new you, this new self, this new idealized version of who we are with the same frame of mind that created the old self and our current reality. This will never, ever work. Never, 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 never. You cannot accomplish this in ego consciousness. So you have to move to an elevated level of consciousness. And you create the new self by thinking new thoughts and new feelings. Thinking the thoughts and feeling the feelings and acting out the behaviors that are in full alignment with the ideal self that you desire to be, that you desire to create. Which brings us to step 2. Get really clear on who you want to be. Ask yourself, and I want you to listen to these questions. You may even want to grab a pen and write some of these down, or just listen to this video again. What is the greatest ideal of myself? Hi, Renska. What would it be like to fill in the blank? What would it be like to be successful? What would it be like to wake up every day and feel totally excited to be alive? What would it be like to be a millionaire? Fill in the blanks, whatever that is for you. Remember, you are getting clear on who you want to be in terms of who is the greatest ideal of you. Who do you admire? Who do you emulate in this lifetime? Or maybe someone from history that you admire, you emulate, you would like to be like. Maybe even someone you know right now. What would it take to think like, fill in the blanks? A millionaire, a successful person, a brilliant entrepreneur, a wonderful live speaker on stage. What would it be like to travel at will? What would it be like to be healthy? What would it be like to cure something? What would it be like to think from an elevated state of consciousness? Fill in the blanks, whatever that is for you. What do I want to believe about me? When you think of the person that you are presenting to the world right now, is that your idealized version of you? Or have you fashioned a certain person that suits your external reality based on the constant validation and corroboration you get from sensory input of your external environment? Have you fashioned this person out of necessity by default? Or have you fashioned this person deliberately? And then which would you prefer? To design the perfect you deliberately, or does it suit you to keep living by default? Does it suit you to keep living as if you are this person that is living for the ideal version of this world that's created externally? Or are you living as if you are this idealized version of yourself based on an internal state that you would like to feel every day, based on who you would like to believe is you every single day? Which one is it? How do I want to be perceived? If you're someone who is marinating in lack judgment and judgment about other people, if you are not in a day-to-day elevated state in how you think about other people in the world, that says a lot about how you think about yourself. Truth. If you're in a constant state of judgment of other people, then you are in a constant state of judgment about yourself, because everything that we experience in our outer reality and our inner reality, it's all a hologram experience. Meaning one thing is mirrored or projected back to the other, back and forth to infinity. This includes everyone we interact with. This includes all events and experiences in our lives. This is always and ever true. Everything is a big hologram. So if you're thinking in lack terms about anything in your life, you are thinking in lack terms about yourself. If you are thinking that people are lesser than, or if people dress a certain way, act a certain way, talk a certain way, and you're constantly in judgment about that, where are you in judgment about yourself? How do I want to be perceived? Which will also change how you perceive everyone else in your external environment too. How would I act if? Fill in the blanks. How would I act if I had my ideal perfect life? How would I act if I had $1,000 right now? How would I act if I had a new car? How would I act if I had a greater tribe of support in my life? I attracted more of my soul family to me. How do I want to live today? We have to stop thinking about when we create something, when we manifest something, that has somehow exists in the future. The second we focus our intention and create a desire and put our attention and focus on that, for all intents and purposes, that is being created now. It's not somewhere off in some future timeline. It's now. And the way we make it more real in the physical now is we start living as if it's already here. Do you know how to do that? If not, you need Evolve and Expand program. How do I want to live today? Means I can be living today in alignment, in vibrational alignment, in the same frequency of whatever exists in my mind as this idealized version of myself. I can start living this today. I can stop Stop thinking that this somehow exists in the future, that it's somehow going to come to me by divine right, somehow, by some external event. No, you create that now from an internal state. How do I want to live today? What would it feel like if? Fill in the blanks. What it feels like to be this ideal version of you is something that must be so big and bold and great. You have to get super clear on this ideal version of you, how she thinks, how he acts, what he looks like, what she feels like on a day-to-day basis, on what you would like to be, do, or have. If this isn't super, super crystal clear, you can do all this work of clearing out and losing this old version of you. But once you free up that energy, and believe me, that's freeing up a lot of energy when you lose the old self, what will you create then? If you're not super clear on what that is, you are again going to be in the state of constantly scratching your head like, why isn't this showing up? Why isn't this showing up? Because you haven't told the universe who you want to be. You haven't allowed the universe to understand fully, completely, boldly, clearly what you want to feel like every single day. This really has to do with your level of clarity on what you want to be thinking every day, what you want to be feeling every day, how you want to be acting every day. When you rehearse this to such a great degree that it feels like it's here right now, that's how you move towards mastery of self. So step 3, you have to move into a higher state of consciousness to be more mindful, more present. You have to move beyond the ego survival mode mind that is addicted to sensory input coming from your external environment. I'm going to say that again. Step 3 is about moving into a higher consciousness, a higher stream of consciousness that is more mindful, more present, more in the now, that is beyond the ego survival mode mind, that is addicted to the sensory input coming from your external environment. Tuning into this state means turning off the sensory feedback loop that is constantly coming from your external environment. In other words, you have to learn how to kind of ignore your outer environment. This is something that can be done. It is a skill. It is a skill. Like many other skills that we develop, and we're very good as humans at developing skills, it's something you have to practice and focus on and put your attention and dedication and commitment on every single day. You do not become a master of your life and your experience by treating this haphazardly, by saying, I'll do it tomorrow, I don't feel like it today. That doesn't work that way. That is not mastery. That is saying that your priorities are not on you creating or reinventing a new self. And largely, when we move into this place of wanting to reinvent or create a new self, if we have these old feelings coming up, that is your old you saying, I don't really want to change because I fear being nobody. The ego's greatest fear, and one of our greatest fears as human beings, is doing an amount of shedding or clearing, of releasing of the old you or the old self so much that we become nobody. We would rather suffer and struggle and be in pain in order to be somebody, to have an identity, rather than lose that and be nobody. I know that hits home for a few of you here. But again, this is a construct of ego consciousness, and this is what you will bump up against over and over. Hey, Tammy. This is the ego mind saying, I don't want to change because I fear that level of change. I fear being nobody. This is what we have to move beyond. And until we learn to move beyond that, you are basically at the mercy of an ego survival mode programming that is going to run your life into the ground. Sorry, not sorry. Those of you who've been following me for a while, you know that I don't really pull punches. I tell it like it is. Because it is so important for us to move beyond this. If we, so many of us are talking about ascension. We want ascended consciousness. We want to live an elevated state of consciousness day in, day out. You can't do this without evolving the brain. What I'm talking about here is evolving the mind and evolving the body beyond ego, conditioning, and survival mode consciousness. There is no ascension for you outside of that. Please understand this. Please understand the importance of this. We must move into this higher state of awareness and consciousness, and doing that means, the only way to do that means, we have to turn off the sensory feedback loop from our conscious waking state, our addiction to our external environment. This doesn't mean going unconscious. What this means is you going super conscious, okay? We need to consciously direct, super consciously direct, in fact, the subconscious from its lowered state of just running automatic programs, and by consciously or super consciously redirecting the subconscious to an elevated state of pure being, connecting to a higher power. And you want to call this the God force, you want to call this source, you want to call this non-duality. I call it non-duality, I call it creator mode. Whatever that is for you, a super conscious, elevated state of being, literally your God's eye perspective of your world and your thoughts and your feelings, not only your external state, but your internal state. Until you learn how to plug into that daily and reinvent the new self from this space. Remember what I said, you're never going to recreate, or not recreate, but reinvent a new self from ego consciousness. Those are two vibrationally, frequency opposed states of being. And you're never going to reinvent a new self or create a new way of being from the same old consciousness that created your current reality. It's never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. I know I sound like a broken record, but please understand that. Because this is where so many of you are hitting a brick wall, is that you're trying to create this new you from a sense of urgency or desperation. That is aligned with survival mode. That is aligned with ego consciousness. You will never reinvent a new self in that place, because quite simply, that is not creator mode, that's survival mode. Stop doing that. Because you're energetically shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again. And it's painful. And this only allows you to feel more suffering. This only allows you to feel more struggle. This only allows you to see more lack. So you keep recreating your current reality, bringing your past into the present over and over and over again from this state. You have to learn how to move into a superconscious state. You have to learn how to create new thoughts and feelings and behaviors from this state of awareness. Moving into this mode of creator, into this higher power, only from this state of being can you objectively look at your limited mind and affect lasting change. That's the only way. It's the only way. So entering into this state of being every day, here's what happens. You lose the old self. You unmemorize your old way of being. And you create the new you that allows you to wire a new way of being. You wire all different neural connections in the brain. You start firing different neurons. And you start wiring the brain differently. You wire the whole body differently to experience a new conditioned response of emotions that are much more self-affirming than the old way. You invent a whole new personality this way. You change your identity in this way. This is how we evolve the mind, and this is also how we begin to ascend beyond the confines of ego consciousness, rooting us in 3D. Doing this work every day, and this has to be every day. But here's the upshot. When you do this every day, you can change and create a whole new personal reality with your everyday life. You can change your identity, you change your personality in 8 weeks. But you have to commit and dedicate every single day. Because you have to understand that the brain and the body understand repetition. The way you've become who you are right now is through repetition. Through thinking the same thoughts every day, feeling the same feelings every day. So if you are out to create a whole new personal reality for yourself that is more self-affirming, you must be committed and dedicated to creating this every single day, repeating this over and over again. But here's another upshot. If you consistently commit to this every single day for 8 weeks, 10 weeks is the sweet spot, I think. 10 weeks. It stops being something that you do, and it just becomes who you are. So that this new way of being is something you just conjure at will. You don't have to sit and meditate or move into a place of mental rehearsal for a half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes every day. It just becomes who you are. Doing this work every day allows you to master a new mind and create a whole new set of emotional responses in the body, which signals your genes to express in different ways. And when you signal your genes to express in different ways, you are rewiring the body as a whole to a new way of being. And rehearsing this new way of being every day allows you to think and feel greater than what you used to believe was a fixed reality. Meaning, this is how you move beyond your external reality. Because you're allowing yourself to be in a completely different mind space and body space every single day. You move beyond the fixed reality of your external environment. And because of the attention and focus you habitually placed on your external environment up till now, that's what taught you to believe who you are, which is basically an ego projection of self. It's not real. Remember those sheaths, those veils, those layers that I talked about at the beginning of this call? Those are the things that will fall away. Those memories that are associated with those sheaths of self, those layers of self, you stop wiring the brain to remember that you, and it falls away. And literally the memory of the old self just becomes this feeling that's almost like if that was a different person, because it was. It's an incredible transformation. So when you rehearse this way of being every day, you also memorize a new overall feeling in the body that is so big, that is so bold, that is so passionate, that is so full of expectation and excitement of your new way of being and new ways that are coming to you that are unpredictable outcomes now. Because the old self only was a predictable destiny every single day, day in, day out. You're creating the same predictable outcomes every single day because you're thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same feelings, and acting the same way every single day. Now you're living at the quantum level. Now you're living in a place where unpredictable outcomes, yet self-affirming, because you're so focused on and have attention to a different reality, a different way of being. And this creates a feeling in the body that's full of expectation of these new, wonderful, self-affirming, unpredictable outcomes coming your way. The anticipation that overtakes every cell, every fiber of your being is so great that it is greater than your external environment. Anything that would normally trigger you in the past, anything that would normally take you out of or move you out of this focus and this attention that you have on creating this new way of being. Literally, this feeling is so great now that nothing can sway you back to being this old way. Nothing can move you out of this feeling to go back to the old way. Nothing in your outer world can move you from your attention, your focus to this new way of being or distract you from it. That is the goal. And that is mastery, people. That is being the master of your experience. When you do this every day, you are the master of your experience. You keep creating new, upgraded levels of the new you. Again, unpredictable outcomes. This is where you move into quantum potential. This is where you move into quantum possibility. You're accessing possible ways of being directly from the quantum field of pure potential. Moving beyond predictable outcomes because you are no longer constantly recreating your old familiar self. That is self-mastery. That is creator mode. That is living the idealized version of you now. That is essentially ascension consciousness. Because until you can move past your memorized emotions, your addiction to your outer reality in terms of your emotional conditioned responses, until you can move beyond the thoughts that keep you recreating your current reality over and over again, and until you are consciously stopping participating in these old behaviors, these old actions that corroborate those thoughts and feelings, you are not accessing ascended consciousness. Have to learn how to do those three things. This is what I am teaching in Evolve and Expand. This is an incredibly powerful course. And I know that the financial commitment might be large for some of you, but here's the thing. This financial commitment directly matches and is in perfect alignment and vibration with the energetic commitment for you that I am asking of you if you're participating in this course. Because what you will get out of it is life altering. Literally, you are creating a new personality, you are creating a new personal identity. What is that worth to you? And what is operating at a sub-level of your consciousness? What is operating at a lesser idealized version of you? What is that costing you? To be constantly in this mode of lack and feeling like I can't access my dreams, I'm not allowed to have it, this isn't for me, everything else works out for everyone else. What is that mindset, that state of being, and all those conditioned responses and feelings in the body every single day? What is that costing you? So that's why the financial commitment is what it is. That is why it's actually going up to $2,200, but not until Sunday. This is vibrationally aligned with the level of transformation you're going to get out of this course if you commit to it. If you show up and do this work, I know that you're going to change. I know that you are. That's a foregone conclusion. If you show up and do the work and commit and dedicate and focus your attention to the work that I'm sharing with you in here, I know it will change you. You know how I know? Because this has changed my life. Who I was even a year ago, who I was even 6 months ago, is so different than who I am today and what I'm doing today, what I'm committing to today, what I allow for myself today, what I give permission to myself to have today, is not something that was in place even 6 months ago. Because I reached a point where I knew that my idealized version of myself was not going to come from the state of consciousness that I found myself marinating in every single day. It just wasn't going to happen. I had to change, and I had to completely commit and dedicate and focus and bring all of my intention and attention forth to create this new way of being. If I can do this, someone who had a laundry list of things that kept me aligned with lack mentality, things that kept me aligned with all of the absence of the things that I wanted or desired or intended to have in my life. If I can move past this, I know that anybody can. And I am so excited to bring this level of transformation to a select group of people because there's only 7 spots left in this course. And it's because I can focus on you a little more individually than some of my bigger group courses. So that's why this is a more intimate but very sacred container of transformation. So if this calls to you, I'm going to leave all the information up in the comments. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take a few questions if you have some. But I hope that this information finds you well, and I hope that this information creates a resonance within you, that this kind of ripples outward and reaches all aspects of who you are and allows you to kind of pull back the lens on your life. Go through these steps. Try to execute these steps on your own. These are things that you can do right now. These are things that you can do from this moment on. It's good to have the guidance. It's good to have the mentorship by someone who has gone through this work and has had a lot of the pitfalls with it too. That is why I'm offering this to you in a very sacred container of information container of transformation, because I want to be able to help those who really hit their heads against the wall with this stuff, because you are going to smack against ego consciousness when you do this. That's just going to happen. It's a foregone conclusion. But if you are serious about changing your life, this is it. This is the program for you. So I want to wish you all so much love and peace, and have a beautiful weekend. Remember that the price on Evolve and Expand 8-week program, it is $300 off until Sunday. Then it will go up, I think, to $2,050, and that'll be for another week, and then it goes up to the full price of $2,200. So don't miss out on this course if this is calling to you. There's only 7 spots left. Love and peace. Bye-bye.